Hello, my name is John Daniels, and I'm here with Jane Bozier. Now, Jane is a co-author of a book called Mindfulness for Transformation, which talks about real-life stories of how mindfulness has helped to make people's lives better. And Jane has got a particularly interesting story. She's a mental health nurse. She was a university lecturer, and now with the coronavirus crisis, she has gone back to being a mental health nurse, and she uses mindfulness. And I'm sure she has a lot of stories on that, but today we're actually going to speak about her story. So
Hello.
Jen, hi. Yeah, I'd love to hear just what your book's about, really, your chapter.
hmm my chapter is about grief and how mindfulness helped me through a very long process, which involved losing a baby and then mental health issues as a result of it, and how I was able to learn to live with it and walk side by side with that grief through the practice of mindfulness.
Yeah, grief is a powerful thing, actually, and feel very prominent, actually, at these times.
Yeah, and I felt again through my work, but I felt that there's a lot of similarities or a lot of loneliness. It's a very personal thing, grief, especially when it involves losing a child, because the law of the land, so to speak, or the universe, is that you outlive your children. And so it doesn't make sense, and it's a very lonely space, or I found it a very lonely space to sit in. And I just felt, having spoke with other people throughout my years, in my job and also just in life, that maybe reaching out to other people with the story would possibly help them not to feel so alone, or to find that some of the things they're feeling are quite normal in the circumstances, because it doesn't feel normal, you know.
And I read your chapter, and it seems like quite a very dark and lonely place, actually. And by the sound of it, actually, it was your daughter, your other daughter, sorry, well, your daughter, that kept you here.
Yes, she's my purpose, and that's why I wrote it. I was a bit unsure, and I spoke with a friend and said, do I or don't I put myself out there with this story, because it is dark. There is a dark space, and it's a very dark space that I sat in for a very long time. And this person said, why not let your daughter know? Because I'd never told my daughter, because I just felt it was a burden for her to have to live with as a child. You're the reason I'm alive. Yeah, it's such a huge thing. But she's a grown up now. She's got children of her own, and it just seemed right to say a big thank you to my daughter, and just to tell her how much I loved her, really. So the whole chapter is actually done for her, if I'm honest, as well as the world. But the motivation was to give it to my daughter.
Yeah. In a way, I feel having a living child is a kind of a very, very strong motivation to stay in this world when everything is really, really really dark. So I'm feeling a bit emotional, talking about it now.
Yeah, I still do now, but it was the loss of reality, really, around, not the loss of reality, but the focus. My focus had become on what I'd lost. It was a very past thing. Yeah, so I was caught up in this, this thinking and the feelings and everything about something that I'd lost, all in the past. And I was forgetting that what I was searching for, what I was looking for, what I wanted, this craving, this need, everything, I already had. My daughter was already here, and I lost sight of that. And that moment when I sort of reached out and kind of said, if you're out there, you know, big man or whatever you want to call whoever, you know, give me a reason to keep going, because I can't find one anymore. And that's the space I was sitting in. I just couldn't find a reason to continue, even though I had my daughter. You had a good life. I had a great life. I've always had a great life, but I couldn't see any of that anymore. I was so caught up, and it brought me right into the present moment. Her doing, when she woke up in that moment and was standing at the top of the stairs, it made me come right back into the here and now, and kind of go, what are you doing? You've got a great life, you know, you've got a child, you've got a great life, you've got everything that you're looking for. It's here. You just aren't seeing it. And that was the moment when I started then really looking at, I didn't call it mindfulness then, it wasn't something I was aware of, but I started looking more at things like yoga, meditation, you know, different elements of what later I found out had been sort of put under the umbrella of the word mindfulness by John Kabat-Zinn. Yeah. So it is, I have, and I did get her to read it before. So before I said, go on, I mean, I'd said, go ahead. Yes, I'll do it. But I said to her, if you don't like it, I won't go ahead with it. So yeah, she had a read of it, and yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah. Wow. And I think like heavy grief, like I cannot even imagine what you were experiencing, but I know that it's a lot heavier than what I've experienced. And heavy grief, it's almost like so deep. You cannot like create a strategy when you're in there to come out. And you tried a lot of different things, and you know, and they all contributed, and somehow you found a way out. And what I read in your, I think that I read in your chapter, and which I'm linking to mindfulness, is that at one point when you were doing a body scan, I'm looking down actually because I'm reading it. You said that the invading thoughts that had haunted me for so many years were quietened each time. I gently escorted my mind back to body. A glimmer of hope arose.
Yes.
So during this time, there were a few seconds, perhaps, that there was peace. Is that what I'm hearing?
Not so much peace, but there was a light at the end of the tunnel. It was such a very dark place and a very lonely sort of personal space. And the body scan, I was really caught up in why me? What did I ever do wrong? You know, all the negative narratives that come with anything. You know, we all have backstories. We've all got these things going on, but the negative narratives were so loud. The body scan just quietened them. Each time I practiced it and came back to my body, I got better at sitting with the body and working my way through the body. And so I was able to let those thoughts go, you know, and not be so frightened by them, because I was very, very frightened by the thoughts I was having. And so it wasn't really peace, it was more acceptance. I stopped not hearing the thoughts, but I stopped attaching the emotions and the stories and back, you know, past, jumping to future. It just brought me back. And it was like, suddenly I thought, I can do this. I can live with what's going on. It was that hope of, I can do this, which I hadn't felt for a long time. I just felt I was going through the motions of living, but not really living, if that makes sense. And the body scan, bringing me into my body, taking me out of those thought processes so that I was getting relief from them, just gave me breathing space, you know?
So when you say, I'm trying to articulate the body scan, you know, what is happening. The body scan is we're sitting or lying down in a place, and we're experiencing our whole life, sensory input, thoughts, etc., and we're directing our attention to certain parts of our body.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what the
And
greatest about the body scan is you've got all this stuff. I had all this stuff going on here. Yeah. And I was focused up here. But the first thing with the body scan is go down to your feet. So for me, it was just that, I don't know why it clicked with me, but it was that taking what was going on from here to the furthest point away, which was my toes. And it just seemed there was a distance. For some reason, that distance worked. And then I was able to work my way back up. And by the time I got back up to what was, pay attention to your head on your shoulders, your face, your whatever, the thoughts were so much quieter. I was able to really enjoy, I think is the word, my body again, because I'd had an operation. That's how I lost the baby, is I was very unwell. I collapsed, I had an operation, and I lived and the baby died. So there was a whole disembodiment as well. And I hated my body for doing such a horrible thing to me. And then as a result, I couldn't have any more children. So not only did it take that child, so I hated my body, yeah, alongside everything else. And so that whole thing about liking my body again, but putting that distance, it just seemed to work. It was very refreshing, even though when I first started off, I have to be fair and say I was lying on my bed going, toes? What do you mean toes? Notice your toes. But it was good to have that thought instead of all that negative beating myself up stuff, where there are no answers. There is no answer to what I was asking. It just is what it is.
I love that, how you say there's no answer, because habitually when we're caught up in our minds, at least when I'm caught up in my mind, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for an answer. So how do I come out of my problem without finding an answer?
That's the thing.
And I do, and it works. Yeah. So in this case, it's so difficult to articulate something in a cognitive way when it's more than cognitive. In a way, I feel as if I'm really caught up in my thoughts, there's a real charge. Thoughts are much a charge there, and if my body, if my experience goes to other parts, then that charge softens a bit, and perhaps it can soften to a degree that well, actually, I'm looking at your words, that you realize that this bit is a part of you, a part of me, not the whole of me.
Yeah.
Just this realization, it's not a logical realization, but it's kind of like an embodied realization. When that happens, there's a magic.
And it is like that light bulb moment. That's what mindfulness has done for me, is it gives me the light bulb moments, where suddenly I can look at, well, not look, it just happens, where I'm like, what are you getting worked up over? You can't do anything about it. It is just what it is. And well, I think if I can find words for it, I remember when I was talking in a mindfulness group once, and someone said about what does it feel like, and I said, well, it's like before I was drowning in the sea, but everyone thought I was waving, hi Jane, but I was actually drowning. But now I'm on a surfboard, and I'm riding the waves, I'm not getting drowned by them. I'm having fun, and occasionally I fall off, hey ho, but I get back on the surfboard, I ride again, I'm surfing. It's good fun. Life is good fun.
Wow.
Even with awful things that happen. And mindfulness gave me that understanding that everything constantly changes. I was in that dark space and I just believed it was going to go on forever. That was it. It isn't. Life is an up and down thing, So I was able to sort of go, well, okay, it's bad now, but it's not bad forever. It will get better. It will change,
And I find it interesting in our earlier conversation, how you said that when you started, you start doing these exercises. Perhaps I'm wondering if maybe it was also perhaps for Natu, why not try it? Why without you really noticing a difference, you said that your colleagues at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just practiced it because it came to me. I believe mindfulness finds people. Well, it found me anyway, and maybe it found me when I was ready. I don't know, but yeah, I just put the CD on, practiced the body scan. Thought it was a bit daft, if I'm honest, but kept going. So there was something in me, which obviously was recognizing that it was useful outside of my thinking brain. Yeah, because my thinking brain isn't very useful sometimes. And it was when people at work said to me, there's something different about you. And it was 3 weeks. I'll never forget it. I'd been body scanning for 3 weeks. And then it got me thinking, maybe I need to explore this more, you know? So I read the book, and it just took momentum from there. It did its own thing. I just decided to put my faith in the universe and mindfulness and see where it took me. And it's been a wonderful journey. It's like life experiment. It's what you were just saying. I believe that it just gives you the opportunity to just experiment with your life and enjoy the experimentation. Some things work, some things don't, but it's good fun along the way.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
It's hard work. So I suppose if I was going to talk or say something to someone who's thinking about having a go, you know, it's not easy to keep practicing it, but it's really worth it. But that's the joy of mindfulness, is that it doesn't always work, and we always go with beginner's mind, so that you take out the expectations and everything. But if and it doesn't have to be sort of an hour omming on a cushion all the time. It can be, as you know, clean your teeth mindfully. It can be make a cup of tea mindfully. It can be add it into your exercise regime. You know, it doesn't have to be sort of this I don't know, the sort of stereotypical thing that people might assume it's going to be. It's just like, you're just, like I say, just having an experiment on yourself. Will this work? Won't it work? What suits me? What doesn't? And you end up with a little rucksack of stuff, really, that belongs to you, you know, that you can dip in and out of. So give it a go, and talk to people. I think I'd say one of the things I've learned is to be a bit more open, and not be frightened to say what's really going on for you, because then you can find the space that would be useful. And breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, breathe. We take our breath for granted. And my one biggest practice, the thing that has been the body scan, yes, but the thing that really has taken me through life and still takes me through life to this day, is just to bring my attention to my breath, be it for a minute, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever. But just to be more consciously aware of breathing. Take that deep breath. When you feel yourself starting to overthink or get anxious, or just breathe, breathe, and breathe. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. And although I didn't want to talk about other stuff outside, actually, I feel what's coming to my mind now is that you know, you've been called back. Well, you've been asked, and you've volunteered to help as a mental health nurse. So you hands-on dealing with people that are having difficulties. And you also told me earlier that which surprised me, that mental health is a big realm, but specifically you doing mindfulness, so your main focus is mindfulness. Is that right?
Yeah. A lot of what I'm doing, because at the moment, a lot of what we're doing is telephone and video consultations, because the face-to-face is a bit difficult at the moment. but yeah, a lot of just sort of brief interventions. So a 1-minute breathing exercise, probably do that with just about everybody I speak to. Brief interventions, you know, one of what I talk a lot about is what I call a thought train. And I say to people in you know, in my job, imagine that your thought is like a train. So you have this negative narrative or whatever's going on, and it takes you on a journey, and then suddenly you realize you're on a train you didn't even remember buying a ticket for. Yeah, you don't even, you're on a journey and you're like, how did I get here? And I'm still traveling. And I say to them, the most important part is that moment, that split second of awareness where you understand you're on that train. Just get off at the next station like you do if you're on a train. That's what mindfulness gives you. It doesn't stop those processes, but it gives you conscious awareness to be able to put an intervention in at a quicker point, which supports your mental health. So, you know, it's a lot of those sorts of things where you say it's okay to have the thought. The thought isn't the problem. It's the story you attach to the thought and then the actions that you take as a result of the story. It's not really the thought. So
Thank
that's
you.
why I practice it in my job with
Thank
my
you.
baby.
Thank you very much, Jane. Thank you for taking the time. Yeah,
That's all right. Well, I hope it was useful.
Yeah, great. It's really great. Really great. Yeah, it's really touching.
Well, hopefully so. I've spoken with a lot of people over the years who've been through the same sort of thing, and when it's just so personal. It's just such a personal thing, losing a child, and you know, and I think the biggest expectation I had is that other people would share my grief, but of course they don't, because they, you know, it's of no consequence or significance to them. And I spent a lot of years being very angry that people didn't remember. They didn't remember anniversaries. They didn't remember. And then mindfulness over years of practicing got me to that point where I thought, why would they remember? You know, I'm putting a lot of emphasis on other people when it comes from me. You know, that's where it starts and that's where it finishes, right here with me. You know, so it's it's been a great journey, and I wouldn't swap it for the world.